talk against it, but not that.
Shall I? Wall किया ना?
There you go, can you see? Yes. So which page would you like me to start? Would you like me to start on plans? Yeah, that's fine. So this initial start was introductory pieces of how we approach your project. And the executive summary just basically gives us an idea of yourselves as a client, what you're after in terms of this hospital here, and also just the vision and the process of how we've been approaching the project as we started with pharmacy in the pre-concept stage, and now we've been in concept stage, and we've had a couple of workshops to define the SOA. So this is a little summary of where we are.
And I think to add to that, I mean, we've obviously developed a feasibility study with Colliers, which is the basis, the foundation for developing the design. We understand the service lines that we're looking to develop. There's been a lot of discussion about maternity, pediatrics, but also the rehabilitation. And also in the Colliers report, there was a discussion whether we would be looking at 200, 250 beds. I think right now we're somewhere in between because it depends what type of beds we're counting. And of course that's gonna have some effects, not only on the overall program, but the number of parkings and so forth, which will be the discussion that we'll have when we get into the layouts.
Right. And then these following pages are basically whenever we design healthcare facilities, these are the elements and components that help us inform our design in terms of evidence-based design. We know that there's a lot of research that's been done, and the recovery and out and nature, etc. And so a lot of that we try to incorporate when we're looking at the design. Lean design, making sure the layouts are efficient, operationally efficient for you as well, but also with the cost. The components that we look at. Adaptable and flexible facility. On some of the floor plates, we've tried to allow for a little bit of soft space, expansion space for the upper floors where we can. But as we know, this footprint is a little bit tight. But we also know that with, for example, the ward floor layouts, we can adapt from single bedrooms into the suites, into the royal suites as required. So we know that when we're designing those modules, we can look at how flexible they can be for future use if your program changes and your service line changes. And then we also obviously look at the patient safety strategies when we're looking at the interior layouts of the bedroom into the bathroom, but also the security of some of the units, for example, PICU, and also the the overall building security, making sure that there's segregations and flows between the public and the private access. And then also looking at some of the current trends and new technologies that are impacting on space and impacting on healthcare delivery for you. So we know that all you can see on the screen at the moment, all of these types of software or devices, ways of monitoring your health, much more at home also, so not necessarily just at home. But there's ways that we can sort of integrate that, and that depends on the type of investment you wish to make on the sort of smart healthcare technologies, but making sure that the facilities infrastructure is suitable for this if you decide to go this route.
I think this is more chat input.
Yes.
Moving into his section, so we skip forward, and the site analysis as well.
Yeah.
Through that, I mean, you've obviously seen that on a number of pages. So
yeah.
Medical planning.
Sure. So when we last met, we talked about obviously the area, the different floor plates, and the different departments and the adjacencies of how best we can restack them to fit onto the building. This is just a summary where it shows that the areas highlighted were the areas that we sort of adjusted. So you'll have the latest, more detailed SOA that you can look through as well. But what we try to do with this now is populate it into the different floors. So we think we've managed to get most of the departments in. I know we're still a little bit tight on the Pico and Nicky floor. But again, once we start going into the detail of that, we can see. Yeah, thank you. And then this page gives us a summary of the departments and the key rooms that are within the hospital. So this is what we've based the SOA and the plans off of since we've had the revisions that we last met with. Obviously, the IVF clinic that was a new addition, but also just looks at the number of rooms and how we've calculated those and the total area as we stand currently.
And you know, one of the things that we talked about earlier in the very beginning about efficiency, if you look at the area per bed, which is around falling somewhere, probably a little bit higher if you're looking at closer to 40, it's still within a very efficient. I mean, typically a lot of hospitals, especially for single patient rooms, fall at minimum around 200. Unless it's a teaching hospital, that's usually more like 250 square meters per bed, so it's fairly efficient.
All right, did you have anything else there on that side?
No. So, looking at the ground floor and the adjacencies with the hotel next door, on each of the pages, so you know, we've put the plans and we've got a little bit of text drive the flows into the facility. And as you can see here with the ground floor, we've looked at where the positioning of the lift cords go.
Sorry, we're just trying to locate where the highway is. It's top of the page.
On the page is the main road, yeah. And the residence, the white block to the right hand side of the flats, the condo, there. The hotel on the left. So when we've been.
Sorry, Jane, there's just a question there. The service entrance, which is here.
No, just the service.
Services.
This is a ramp, yes, for parking.
Yes, this is the ramp. The
The other part is the services, yes. Top of the ramp.
On the top of the ramp?
Yeah. Between the buildings. Between the buildings, yes, this is the service.
Services, yeah. So that's a physical.
If you were asking about the service entrance, so that would be going down the ramp. That's where your mouse is there. Yeah.
So this is still another.
Where they can move downtown.
Oh. Okay. Sorry.
Because on the ground floor we only have the emergency department and then the retail and pharmacy, as you can see. Yeah. So all deliveries out to the basement.
Do we have an access for car in that area? The area between the two buildings?
So this area here, we haven't decided, have we, whether or not that's going to be accessible for vehicles? At the moment, probably not. I think it's pedestrian.
I thought that, yeah.
So it's connected to the hotel.
I thought that was the connection for the hotel. So the idea was that for that to be used by pedestrians only.
What do you think?
If you check the drawing of the hotel, it's a small building.
Yeah, right. Which is that?
Yeah.
So if we make that a covered link, then do you see any benefit in having vehicles through here?
No, this should be on the service.
So the service
It's back for the service of the hospital.
And that's a combined service entrance, do you think, for the hotel as well?
No, not for the hotel. Normally, once you have the approach, you will see the hotel, there's a sales one.
Yes.
And the sales one, they are putting LED services.
Oh, right, yeah, LED services, right.
This is the ramp, yes?
Yes.
For the parking.
So that takes you down.
The other part, I mean, most of the building, they are using it as services.
For MEP systems. Okay, right.
So
you have the
he's
service.
saying right here we could put services for
What is the
yeah, rather than just. Sorry?
Transport stuff.
Entrance for staff is there a public, I mean, the public entrance, probably this entrance is maybe the staff entrance. Is that correct, Jane? Is that a business or does everyone come in at the front?
They are passing through the services.
Jane?
Sorry, Missy, there was, I think the staff entrance, we can, depending on where they're parking as well, they would come up.
Yeah, they can come through the lifts if they're parked on in
Well, yeah,
the
it's
walk.
the east front, yeah.
That was from the ground floor, like,
If they've been dropped off.
yeah,
They've been
so
dropped
at the main entrance.
Very main entrance, I suppose, which is, yeah. There's always a possibility of connecting in here as well. If we want to give them a discrete drop off point here.
Yeah, if it's a discrete one, we could then use that side.
Main drop off area is up here.
Yeah, what is the car?
So when we put this at the side, did we consider any reason for that?
I think the reason why we decided to have the main entrance over here on this side rather than over here is because of all the congestion that's happening through with the hotel coming through here. There's going to be a lot of traffic coming through here, so we wanted to just pull it all the way over here.
This one here is building, yes?
Yeah, that's our block, the white block.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Main entrance will face the building.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things. One, we wanted to keep the frontage for retail. That was one of the things that we talked about from the very beginning. That chairman wanted to make sure that the frontage of the building was for retail. Was correct?
No, we said that we need like a retail.
Right.
Which side? We didn't specify.
But I thought it was because it was the front of the building, which is facing the main road, to give frontage for the businesses to have more of a brand exposure. You're gonna keep it to the front of the building, right? Other than hiding on the side.
No, we need to brand the hospital or brand the.
Well, you're gonna brand the hospital for sure. There's gonna be signage at the top. That's I mean, the rest of the building is hospital. So how you brand that at the end, but the frontage of the retail, instead of hiding them on the side of the roads, we thought we would put them in the front. Unless you think, I mean, that's one of the.
You can flip that. I think we flipped this arrangement a couple of times, whether or not you have any of or retail.
One of my experience with the hospital access from the side was not that.
That's not.
What's it called?
Wasn't?
That was not good.
Okay.
And I see they have an entrance from the side.
Sure.
So the German hospital in charge of their entrance from the side.
Okay.
And many hospitals from the sides. It doesn't give that good looking, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Hospital is hospital. Entrance.
How do we strike that balance then with the retail frontage on the side? I mean, we can create a lens kind of.
Let's propose it that they will go to gym. Because that's the main business is hospitals, not like. I understand the concern, but I think we can flip it out.
Okay.
It won't affect existing proposed.
Well, no, I think at the end of the day, look, the emergency needs to be at the back, no matter what. We agree all of that, right? Now, the retail and where you come into the hospital, we can sort of work with that, and it's not going to change a lot of what we.
It's only that this, what do you call it, in depth, what do you call this?
Correct. The drop off, whether it's.
Yeah. You can cover it in the second floor by something so, and then
I see what you're saying.
so the space you lose it in the lobby,
क्लाइंट कह रहा है कि
and
मेरे
the
को
drop
साइड
area
से
you
है
can cover.
सो एक्सप्लेन करें कि रीटेल साइड ट्रांसफर करने के लिए क्लाइंट कह रहा है मैं तो उसका ही
Just corridor in the
Hospital
underground.
branding का होगी
We try to create something here, right? The next
ऐसी था
maybe
And he was concerned regarding the congestion of the car,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the same thing. Car will drop here or there. It's a little bit extra, 15, 20 meters. But 5 cars, 7 cars will fill up that space. So
do you think before showing this to the chairman, he will want to see an entrance into the reception from the frontage as well as the retail?
I mean, what we will do, we will try to we will try to find something
उसमें कुछ ही बोला
that will actually be, of course,
नहीं अभी तक कुछ नहीं
चैट ने तो साइड प्लान
will
बनाया
balance with the
था
retail, because the chairman wants
अभी
some
बैन
retail.
ये कर रहा है बीच में जेन एक बार चाइम इन
the
किया
corners will be retail.
Yeah, we can work on it.
So you're thinking, okay, let's keep the center in the front for the entrance, even if you have, like you said, just retail off to the sides, it's built either outside or whatever the case is, but also have entrances from the inside.
So both corners can be used for retail. But hospital entrance, we don't do the same mistake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. So does that, did you get that okay, Jane? We may.
No, do you mind repeating? I think the preference is to have some drop-off entrance towards the north, the sort of north side, I guess, onto where your hand is at the moment.
That's the idea. And then connect through the reception here and have both corners.
Just one.
For the retail.
Yeah.
Oh, the very first.
So if we create a short
And then in the second one.
corridor.
Is that an entrance? Is that like a proper car drop-off entrance?
So the lay-by here to the drop-off. So move this lay-by to here.
Right. Okay. We would have to have a look at the flows and the access of the ramps and everything further down.
Yes.
To the basement parking to make sure we get that flow right, so that there's no congestion off the highway.
Okay. It's not directly related to the highway.
Yeah.
ऐसे आके ऐसे जा तो सकता है ना इसमें
Everyone just that's on the call, if you get kicked off the call, just connect back through the same link. Still having Zoom problems. So if you just connect through the same link, please.
Okay.
Is it been shared with the TIS consultant?
I think that, yeah.
I mean,
And again, this is just because we've been just developing a preliminary, it's been a work in progress right now, so we haven't had a chance to really get the TIS.
just not like this, that people pass not feedback. Maybe we can advise and stuff
And
to avoid conjunction.
And I think now that we know that you guys definitely want the entrance in the front, and I think it's even more important to probably just quickly develop it, something and quickly share it.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. That's fine.
What I see is one of our main selling points in the future, accessibility to the main highway.
Accessibility to the main highway. Yeah. So
And that's how we're going to position the hospital. I've seen those hospitals at the sites, and really people are not happy from site access.
It will be dark, it will be...
Yeah, congested, you don't know who's parking next to you.
no, it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But again, it was just this maximizing frontage for retail. But we know the balance that we need to strike now between these two. So we'll have a look at that. Let's see if we get it. Okay. Okay. Is there anything else on that layout? Any other?
I think it's really just to set the scene that the orientation of the lift course, we ended up looking at splitting the lift course into 2 lifts on each visitor and public lift, and then having central bed and patient lift and goods lift in the middle. What we did with the region.
So I guess just to confirm everything, so you told us a little bit about the entrance in the front. In terms of staff parking in the basement, accessing the elevator, coming up, that's all fine, right? Okay. In terms of, I assume visitors coming will also either, I don't know if you're having a valet service or if you're just going to have them park downstairs and then access the the elevators.
Okay, operationally
So
we didn't decide on that, but usually if this front people they drop off their cars, again, maybe we can guide them to receive it from the back side entrance or something. There are some ways of getting it operationally. There are so many hotels where you drop it on the lift from the back.
Well, we know even the side entrance could that be a valley?
By the way, this area, the setback, as I understand, not the same distance of this, because here there's a sikka.
Yes.
So the calculation is different than the
Yeah, we had a discussion about that last week, and it's. I mean, we need to have a chat about that as to whether or not we can increase the footprint of the building based on the setback confirmations that we have. It's just whether or not you want to increase it. That's the cost. There is an opportunity that we could increase it. Because you're right, the setback is different here than it is here.
Yeah, but we will use our plot.
You want to maximize the plot? Because that was
maximize. You have a plot.
Yes.
You will use the setback and then build your building.
Yeah. So we can increase the GFA. We can increase the GFA from what we have now.
Based on your calculation, how much now the GFA?
GFA is 37,700, I believe. It was on the previous.
Yes.
Yes, about yeah.
Setback only will be ground floor. The rest of the building will be the same. So I'm talking about the ground floor. We are taking all this area.
These are the setbacks.
Yeah. So you are taking a lot of area for the drop-off. But the calculation is different. See, the setback there it's less than the one beside the hotel. But you took the same, almost the same. You took 70.5 centimeter. It should be half of that.
We definitely can expand the footprints, and on some floors it will make things better to fit everything in.
It's not related to the ground floor. We are talking about ground floor.
But the setback height, is it not across for the whole building, for the whole footprint of the building?
Setback on the ground floor. Yes. After that, you can do your buildings.
So you can go to the extent of the plot. Is that right, Heather? Is that your understanding?
This area, the one that we allowed to build, but on the upper floor, I mean, what I am talking on the ground floor. Ground floor, you are taking up to here.
Yes.
Should be here.
Okay.
Yes, this is my point. I'm not talking about maximize the GF. I'm talking about the ground floor. If you go back to the ground floor, here you will see that this area, you put it equal to this, which is not the case.
But I think what Sean is saying is that, okay, there's one impact on the additional area, right? Okay, so you said let's push the boundary to the
ground floor.
And ground floor. Okay. Now
because you will do drop off there, so we can use the area. If you do the drop off there, we can use.
We can use a little bit of okay.
So the limit.
So are you saying as we go above the ground floor, we can actually build to the red line? Well, certainly build on this side.
About the ground floor.
It means to increase the area of only ground floor.
Not increase, using what we have.
Yes. In terms of having access.
The allowable area.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're trying to do. The setback for the building is it's the middle of the alleyway plus 7.5.
7.5
is sets this line from the apartment side, and from this side it's 7.5 to the edge of the building. So that's what we've generally set it out. This is more of a diagram rather than something that actually shows you the dimensions. But we have basically we've worked to these dimensions to pretty much get the footprint. But these two zones here are still access. These are still areas where we can use for roads and drop-offs and laybys.
Yes.
So so that's what we've generally done. Our footprint generally falls within this zone here.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are. I know it maybe looks a bit sort of different on plan, but
this is the point. Just different than this is. But
yeah. Okay. So, have we not move up the building to outpatients?
You want to continue up the building?
Yeah, so level 1 is the outpatient clinics. I mean, you can see where the how the circulation works. So we've got the public or visitor lists at either end, where patients would be using those.
Things to do over the weekend, but wait on.
Oh, hello?
Hello, yeah. How are you? Yeah, we're back on. I think we all made it. You see the screen?
Yes.
There you go.
So yes, as I was saying, level 1 is the outpatient clinics. I mean, we've tried to cluster the consult exam rooms with some support space. So if there was a need to separate them, say for pediatrics or gynecology, there is an opportunity to do that. And the main area that is on this floor is we've got a central prayer area on this floor, so that's near the public list. Yes. On this floor, we were able to fit, we based it on the SOA, so we were able to get all the number of consult exam rooms and treatment rooms that were required for that floor.
So yeah, this is the outpatient clinics. You're saying that these could be different clinics. These can be subdivided. They're flexible clinics, effectively.
Yeah, if there is a need to do that.
Okay, so these are the public lifts here.
Within the toilet floors.
Oh, the toilets. Well, there will be some at reception, at main reception for the public, and there will also be staff toilets. But I mean, all we've done there is shown the number of exam rooms, but we will then articulate the rest with things like toilets and support accommodation.
And not all the rooms are showing up. What we're trying to do is to identify the flows in a way that you have the public area, which is the lighter zone, and then after that it starts to become more private, which is where the clinics are. So how do you travel? How does the patient travel from this public zone, and then potentially how it starts to subdivide some of these clinics into clusters?
And it could be that this total list as well. So these are public visitor lists. So it could be that some of the patients come up here, go to reception here, and circulate that way. And maybe these lists they come in and can go to these clinics that way. It really just depends. We've got 2 or 3 points of access there, so we can articulate them. Necessary. Else, we'll move on to the next floor.
Yeah. So the next floor is imaging and cardiopulmonary. I mean, you can see where we
flow diagrams, and then we have
the main
departments there
entrance
which are
for
the same plans except with
for the
arrows
visitor
and then
and
with
the path
text.
on that floor would be from that
So
bottom
I'm
right
wondering if we need to
corner.
do that
So that's where the main reception area would be, and then all the central facilities, like the toilet blocks, for example, they would be located in that area. There will be some general waiting space there as well before you go in either into the imaging suites or the cardiopulmonary suites.
I was going to say with the imaging, it could be that with one of the bed lifts, it could be dedicated access to from A&E if required, and you can do that manually controlled override the control.
Sorry, what was that? That was from A&E?
From A&E, if you need to come up to imaging, you can manually override the lift's operation to get up to the imaging department if required. Almost like a hot lift. So that lift can be from A&E up to imaging, up to theatres.
Okay. Can we draw the patient movement here?
Yes.
Now, let's say patient comes from the ground floor, OBD. Then the patient is advised to visit the imaging department.
So you want to go back?
What I noticed that each time the patient uses a different elevator. Okay. So here the ground floor, he used. Can you go down? Okay. So let's assume the patient used this elevator at first day. He go to the OPD. Okay. So he used now. If he wishes to go to the imaging, he need to go for another lift.
So he goes to the central lifts to take you to imaging?
Yeah.
He's bringing it in.
We try to reserve those for more to the inpatient movement and visitors to the inpatient visitor movement and the OPDs. I'm trying to follow the patients.
I think this is the lift that you from OPD.
So starting from here, moving to here. Can we go up? Next door?
Yeah.
Then dropping.
You just go straight up the department.
Dropping to this. Okay. So this is not useful at this stage.
It's bypassing that floor, I think. Is that correct? This lift? Jim?
No, it's not. It stops on that floor. So when you click you have two options. So there's two separate public lifts at either end that the visitors and the patients can access the floor. It's not
from operational point of view, to have a multiple access, that's been a reception next to each access.
Yeah.
That's an extra staffing.
right. Okay.
So maybe if we can standardize the flow in a way that it will add a value, and I know it's a little bit difficult at this stage, but avoiding jumping from right to left.
So yeah, there was always a reference back that the patients come in with that. Maybe that becomes the main lift, and maybe you don't access here from that lift, because it is.
Patient यहाँ से
No, the lifts will stay as it is. It's indicated by the tar.
दोनों विजिटर ब्लॉक्स हैं ये पेशेंट ब्लॉक हाँ सही कह रहा है कि विजिटर को इमेजिंग जाना है तो एक मिनट बैंक लेगा ओपीडी जाना दूसरा लोग बैंक लेगा.
So we could just make that access for car we want. And does that make sense? Do you have enough?
So maybe at a later stage we feel that this will be more crowded and we need 3 lifts at the first stage. Having 2 lifts the initial stage. So this is where the movement is happening. Most of the movement.
Yeah, just for that imaging department, would those 2 lifts be sufficient if they're the only 2 lifts that access from a controls point of view? In imaging, or do we need that capacity for those 2 lifts?
I think depending on the volume, and I think outpatients and imaging will probably have quite a lot. Hence we split them just to try and get a bit more. You can use either way, but I understand the orientation. If everybody came in at the top left, that was like the main public lifts, and maybe the ones at the back are just for more internal movement.
Exactly.
So it depends on how you sort of signpost that. But if we kept the sort of orientation of all the reception, waiting onto that front entranceway, then that may help with what the Dr. Science
Okay, that's fine. So we'll continue. Keep this in mind for the future.
For all levels? So imaging, and then we're on to.
So you're okay with that, right? I mean, that makes sense. If those banquets are more for an internal ones, yeah. So if they're going from an OBD clinic to, let's say, to imaging, because they've sent them from there, then it's more of an internal movement rather than really they have to go back and check in or something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You've always got the option of escorting somebody to these nursing room to that control point.
I'm thinking just because of the operational cost.
Yeah. But you don't want two receptions, it's difficult. From a security point of view as well.
LDR
We
was
will
really
see how we design it gradually, but if we can focus on one side, easy to control, direct.
Well, the other thing is you will always have the ability to be able to use these lifts in the future, so you have flexibility.
It's available,
Yeah.
but the way we, as in these early stages, it's more to, instead of having two sides, stress staff and
Yeah.
build it at the end of the month.
What about service lifts?
Service
So
lifts
the yellow
yeah.
ones.
The other ones.
Yeah. So the red
It's
ones are
also
just
efficient in terms of
that's
service
what the large ones for the beds.
yeah, service like
Ones
natural.
are yellow.
Okay, regarding civil defense requirement, what's the minimum space between two stairs? Is this meeting the requirement?
We have to check the this as
It should
so
be
they are allowing
land.
But these things will be evacuation patients as well.
Their requirement, at least, I think that this corner should
This corner.
I think yes, the stairwells maybe you will not achieve this. The distance between these two staircases should be therefore. Yes. So can you double check with that because that will reflect really on the whole design.
Okay.
And then next floor.
Yeah. So next floor is the on the next floor we've got the section suite. So there's the 2 ORs and then we have the clinical lab and the CSSD.
So if you will come near the entrance, you will also, like sometimes they are taking direct the lift. Without going to the reception, just nice hand. So it will go and then you will.
So they present an ED, like they probably use these as rather than these, which is a more sort of public, getting the food format. It's fine.
So you push the clinical lab to that second there.
Is that
Yeah, just like engine.
Thinking so.
okay?
Let's move forward now. We'll look at it maybe and give you the right feedback. So I don't want to give comments now until I see the other floors.
Fine, that's fine. We can go through them and then
Yeah.
and it can give you the picture because then the CSSD is located underneath the theatre floor but on the C-section floor. And we'd have to look at the flow of movements, but
Four? No.
C-section floor.
5 sections of 4, theatres of 5.
So we'll start.
What floor does the tower start at?
Six is the cafe restaurant.
Yeah. To 6.
Okay, sorry, do you want to continue there, Missy?
Sorry?
Do you want to continue there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is the theater floor, so you can see how we've got the 5 theaters plus the hybrid theater with a clean core shared between those. We've got the dedicated staff change on the top left there. So that's for
Doesn't the clean core need
yeah,
access to
for stuff on this
service?
floor to change. And then we have the so we've got the
CSS
registration
here.
and waiting space
This guy is
directly
here.
opposite the bed lifts, and then from there, patients, will be moving into the into the holding or recovering, then theaters, and then back out the same way. And we've allowed some space for an endoscopy suite and the cath lab suite. So potentially there's there might be a smaller holding area in there as well for one or two trolleys.
One thing I'm also questioning is, do we need to have this central core in this orientation? हमारा support space wide enough है कि इसको हम सीधा भी कर सकते हैं with respect to
ये
our
बाकी सब तो सीधा है other than the towel.
हाँ हमारे support पे इतनी depth है कि हम इसको सीधा करके
Well, we try to keep it separate from the main theatre suite.
Structure तो हमें transfer करना ही पड़ेगा regardless.
It was also the limitations we had with the floor plate. So they had to be separated.
Usually the guidelines which clarify, because endoscopy is not a maybe it's not very ideal to have both of them next to each other. I know there will be a lot of segregation, but it's sometimes you deal with the what do you call it? Colonoscopy and all of these moving materials from one side to another side, which might get maybe cath lab would need more dedicated clean area to the.
Yeah, actually we have endoscopy further up the building, so I don't know if that is.
We have what, sorry, Jane, could you repeat that?
Endoscopy is further up with renal dialysis.
Yeah, that's more of a.
Yeah, that's further up with renal dialysis. So I don't know if this is just a procedure room or if this was.
This was just a procedure room because that was identified on the.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's physically located just next to the cath lab.
Yeah.
Okay, we can move.
Somewhere in the. Now another suggestion. I've seen that the staff changing areas is at the corridor. I'm just looking on the flow and accessibility. How you can segregate it into semi-sterile. Sorry, what do you call it? Semi-control. The 3 stages. By this, they need to go in, then go out.
Right.
I cannot see an access to get in. So they need to walk here, then they go outside, which is this area we consider as semi-control.
Pass-through chain, staff chain.
Yes.
A walk-through staff chain.
So maybe we can swap it with the cath lab.
We'll have that here, and swap staff change.
Maybe, because where the staff will come in and how they change. Because if they're in this left, the back side, the corner, so that might be better to have the staff changing area in this area, then they will go to
maybe somewhere right here, give that space back.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Jim?
Yeah.
And maybe move cath lab from staff change here.
Yeah.
All of that.
That's at least because you mix up between the green and the pink color.
Okay.
We can move them around.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Again, to reflect and if you put out the MEP work for toilets, that will clarify for you where they can have the changing area.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, we'll let you.
Okay, for each 6.
Yeah. So this floor has the restaurant, cafe, and the conference and the conference and education facilities. So you can see how the floor is split there. Okay. Great. The next floor is the PQ and NICU floor. So you can see on the NICU side we have 14 rooms, including two isolation rooms and two rooms for multiple. Then on the so you can see those the isolation are towards the bottom right, and that's and then but on the PQ side we're showing we have 8 rooms, including the 2 isolation rooms. So in the original SOA, I think from our last discussion, we said we had 14 noted in there, but we knew that this was going to be difficult to achieve because this is one floor where the area in the SOA is a lot larger than what we have available on the floor plate. So that's the that's the compromise there.
So we're at 8 total?
So there's 8 PQ beds instead of 14, and there's 14 NICU beds. 12 rooms, 14, 12, yeah, sorry, 12 rooms, 14 beds, because there's the multiple ones.
Okay.
And then clinical support spaces in the middle have to be shared between the 2 facilities.
Okay, we will look at it a little bit in depth later on. If you can clarify just the width of the corridors here.
They're 2.4, where you have the where the narrowest bit is. So where you say between the PQ bedrooms and the clinical support that's 2.4 meters. And the same on the other side, where you've got the multiple NICU bed, that's 2.4.
And can we better utilize the remaining NICU space at the top? Because the corridors seem to be here almost 4 meters.
Yeah.
I mean, we can start introducing some smaller rooms there, and maybe support or touchdown bases. I mean, we can have a look at that.
And we have a one corridor with 2 rooms opposite each other.
You want a single corridor through the?
So
well,
and a few rooms here.
Yeah.
We'll add a little bit more.
So yeah, if you have an area that's kind of more storage or whatever.
What do you need in NICUs?
Well, you don't get any natural light killing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All extra rooms.
I mean, we didn't want to show any beds on that anywhere.
Does that require the NICU to have a natural light source?
वही कह रहे हैं
तो निकी को नेचुरल लाइट चाहिए
When
Jane,
is-
Bissy, do you know? I mean, what's the standard requirement for natural light for NICU?
That is a requirement, yes.
For NICU?
So sorry, I think
For NICU.
for NICU, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely mentioned in the FGI guidelines.
इनको सिर्फ ये
There's
सपोर्ट
a
आगे बढ़ा
requirement that
देते हैं
they need to have
बात
daylight
खत्म
in
हो
2
गई. They could
rooms.
have just utilized this
Are you
for support.
suggesting
Okay.
putting some
I
rooms
think
on the
we're
opposite
trying to
side
get the numbers back.
in the sort of, so there's more inboard?
Correct. I guess the question is there a better way that we can maybe potentially optimize that space in a way that
I guess
just fill it in with just support spaces, but something that makes more sense of that, just to make sure that it's really well utilized and efficient.
You go for open bay, more open bay.
well, I was going to say you've got those rooms which have got 2 bays, haven't you? You've got multi-bed.
Yeah.
You could either sort of carry that around, so you can get more multi-beds, but you just don't have to be private.
You have more open bay, maybe. Because it still has access to
Exactly.
You could have 4-bed bay. 4-bed bay, but I don't.
got the proportion that you want.
Another point is the shape of the zigzag, which we have it here. Again, it's odd from operating point of view.
Gina, I mean, is there any potential? I know it's generally 2.4 between corridors, but if you have all of these sort of layby areas for entering and exiting rooms, does that give you any flexibility to reduce corridor widths? If you have enough of these little kind of lay-bys where 2 beds can pass.
We are trying to reduce the corner.
Does that make sense?
To reduce the cost.
We could try and reduce the corridors a bit more, but I think you know, it's just if the passing faces because of those ensuite lobbies, you can. I think it's just standardising the corridors throughout the whole tower.
Yeah.
For the services that you probably want to try and keep.
And what we try to do outside, say the PQ rooms that you were looking at, is basically the idea in those recesses, say where the in front of the ensuite, is to have a touchdown base with some observation screens, so staff can look into the room from the corridor while they're writing up notes on their computer, for example.
So they can see in here and here?
Yeah. Yes, and the thing sort of further down, yeah, exactly. So the idea is that you still have some observation into the rooms.
So they're touchdown and little touchdown style bases with big into the rooms. So it means you don't have still have a central
touchdown spaces?
I've seen different designs where it's the right table.
Looking into rooms. Right, and that's what I think what they're saying is they're
those walls.
Yeah, you don't need to have that in article.
You're saying it could be much less, or what are you saying?
Actually, I want that so to be already.
I wish I could.
I'm not good at drawing it. I think it.
Yes, I see what you're saying. So we can minimize it. It doesn't have to be that.
So this is where you have the visual control,
and then you have a desk right there. Yeah, and she could just see both of them.
Yeah, Jane, but see, the idea is this would probably just be a desk of a worktop, so maybe 600 or so. Just have a stool with that pop underneath.
And all of them are isolation based. There's that here.
Just 2 isolation here.
Isolation.
Yeah.
So that essentially we're giving more space back to the patient rooms rather than to the corridors.
Cool.
Then at the same time we're minimizing that of that I don't know what to call it. It's just that indent.
Yeah, right terminology or
recess or I don't know if you're going to gain if you steal all that space back again, if you don't have enough to squeeze another room in somewhere, but you probably want a nest of 2 really, or a cluster of 2. I don't think you're ever going to gain another bed. You're just going to get bigger rooms.
No, I don't think it is possible because the width is not going to be enough. You're not gaining anything in the width, which is
yeah. But I mean, again,
okay, think about.
And again, I think this is our first initial looking at this, so I think there's ways that we can look at this again and try to maximize on it. Right now, the first shot at this was really to try to see how much can we fit in there and does it really fit with the space program that we have. Now that we have an understanding of what we can fit, I think we can look at certain parts of it as we go through these floor plans to see if we can better utilize the space.
So just on the next, just to confirm, do you want us to look at more multiple
What's the time you get for this?
You mean like
our agenda?
We probably won't even get through this.
If it is like this,
but we can suggest something. I mean, it's trying to. But how many NICU cots we got there?
There's 14 cots in total. 2 of them are in the multiple rooms, so there's 2 in each of the multiple rooms. So there's.
Can you grant me an access to the 2018 FGI? Just one of the things which I'm looking for.
Yeah, I know it's not perfect to be able to maybe even suggest that if we are hitting the number of cots, which I think was 14, is it worth maybe having the entrance to NICU here and trying to squeeze another couple of PICU? I know you're going across. It's not ideal.
It's fine.
Would that be an idea? Maybe trying to borrow a few bits here for PICs.
What's the distance between the core and the rounds?
So this distance, 2.4 is oh, Jane, do you know what that dimension is?
What the, I think the room, maybe it's, yeah, if you give us a couple of minutes, we can check it in the model.
Okay. Well, what are you thinking, Bassam?
Just if, sometimes if it's wide enough, we can do some areas, small to divide this to, if it's small.
I think अभी 8.5 है उनका depth.
Anyway, if you can send me about just what the dimension.
And it's large rooms.
Okay, so we'll look at that. But the minute we have it, where we have an opportunity, we can suggest maybe we'll make an increase.
So, are you thinking with the 2018 that the make use because we're asking for space and potentially individual?
I want to read it fastly
So,
to
See what they're at.
see an area of opportunities. Okay, and keep in mind that DT will announce the new guideline, which is Abu Dhabi one. So that's give us some opportunity because the Australian guidelines is still based on the old FGI.
Sure. I see.
Okay, so from that perspective.
Okay.
Well, we actually are working with the specialist concept of the issue.
Working with TAPI.
So we'll go through the rest of these.
They modified the old one, which is 1991. That 1991. So they are trying just to update it and modify it.
But what you're saying is that even the
TAPI guidelines are actually,
the traffic guidelines are referring to FGI, but the FGI 2014, right?
yeah,
2010.
Oh, 2010.
They didn't update it.
Okay.
Because it's more into, I don't say one man show, but it's not that you don't have that team of experts giving feedback and updating guidelines. No. There's still a limited number of people working.
Next, we moved up to level 8. This is CCU.
yeah. So CCU and ICU on this floor.
Yeah.
So we've got 7 ICU rooms and 7 CCU rooms. So you can see that top side is ICU and the bottom is CCU. With the clinical support spaces sort of located centrally.
This corridor is nice.
Here.
Which one? Here. Yeah, and it's getting cut across.
No, I think what you're saying is it doesn't have all those indents. It just
Oh yeah, this one.
very straightforward.
Exactly.
We don't have isolation between.
But I think as we start populating those areas on the north, you'll start to see that becomes the main corridor.
I mean, the person who is standing here, you can see all the polygon.
Yeah, so from here they can orientate that way or that way. Yeah, so it's just one big reason.
We've seen this curve rather than.
We'll go through that. That's remind me about the agenda, Dr. Zahra. We're going to round through these pretty quickly. So that was endoscopy, so we're on level 9 now, Jane. So that's endoscopy and IVF dialysis.
yeah.
Okay. Well, can you clarify for us more regarding the endoscopy, what you are planning to do here?
Yes.
not the discussion.
Yeah, it's true. What I'm talking here, so what we are going to utilize in the endoscopy is the whole space, 480 square meters.
You think it's too big?
Well, Sam,
Can
that'll be
you go
this
back
is-
to the
space program? Do you have the latest space program handy, Lizzie?
Yes. So I'm just looking through that now. So what we for endoscopy, what we had identified there, we had space for 12. We had space for some pre and post phase, and
what's a previous version?
we have two endoscopy rooms on that floor.
Sorry, Lizzie, can you share? Stop sharing.
Yeah.
Call and Middle East.
So this is taken from the latest SOA. So the endoscopy, we have the main
MOB
resection
is
and
the
some
client
waiting
fee,
space.
yeah.
Then in terms of the clinical space,
Yes.
the procedure
Ah.
rooms, we have two
Why change the
endoscopy
weather?
rooms. There's some space for clean dirty scope holds, and then there's a clean dirty utility and all the clinical support spaces you need for that floor. And also we have we have 6 holding bays, or prep and recovery bays, if you like.
Okay. What we can see over here, there's a redundancy between the 4th floor and between 4th and 8th.
Yep.
So now what will happen that endoscopy team, whenever there is we require anesthesia, anesthetist will come, there will be an extra gases, medical anesthesia machine,
Yep.
are there. Can we think about reducing a little bit the requirements and keeping it in that same floor, 4th floor?
All endoscopy departments.
So, yeah. On the theater floor, we only have just one endoscopy.
Where is your day surgical?
Any surgery?
Patient who will go for minor procedure,
Right.
do they have dedicated, or they will go to the operating theater?
We have not identified this was not identified previously, day surgery as a separate requirement. So all the theaters are only on the floor we talked about. I mean, there is some pre and post recovery base on that floor. So stage 1 and definitely stage 1 recovery would be down there. Stage 2 could be in the bedrooms, but
Dr. Sana, I guess the question is based on your volumes of patients that you think you're going to get, how many procedure rooms do you think we're looking at total?
One will be okay, maybe second will be a future expansion. So as a bed horizontal.
Both for even for outpatient procedures, including.
But again, here, whenever we say outpatient, if you are going to sedate the patient, as per current, you need anesthetist support.
yeah.
Then we're again talking about the operational.
Yeah.
So jumping from 4th to 8th and changing gowns and all of this. So can you go to the 4th floor a little bit?
Do you wanna? I can share it.
Sharing, yeah. That's fine, yeah.
How many of the procedures of the
अगर बैन इनवाइट भेजेगा तो उसके साथ नहीं होगा इशू, ये फ्री अकाउंट का इशू होता है.
क्या हो गया?
जो डायरेक्टली खोलें फिर.
trying to get into through the sample servers. That's maybe what's wrong.
I'll try one back up here last time, see if it works.
Yeah. Sorry, is everyone back on the call?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So can we proceed on? So we've done that floor. The rest, I think, are going to be inpatient floors, aren't they?
Yeah,
General
so
inpatient.
pretty standard.
Okay. That's much better.
Yeah, so the floors
Yeah.
going up.
All postpartum.
This is postpartum, and I think we've just laid it out in a similar as the patient units.
What's the size of the patient room here?
Let's just check.
Oh yeah, 27.
I think it's oh there, yeah, it's, you can see there it's about 26, 27 square meters. Now, I mean, I think we did have a question when we started looking at this layout. We did have a question as to about the length of stay. So how, I don't know if you have any idea how, or what the plan is. How long will they be staying in those rooms? Is it a few days or a month, or I don't know if that that
Days.
led me to the layout.
No, it's a few days. Usually 2 days, and what covers by insurance. And I think for cesarean section they will add 1 more day. So you talk about 2 to 3 days maximum.
Okay.
And then, after that the patient will pay, unless there's a complication.
Of course, yeah. So if we say, so okay, so if it's for 2 to 3 days, will this be an acceptable solution then for these 2 floors? Having similar sort of areas as we do for the inpatient bedrooms.
families.
Exactly. Yeah, we were thinking of making it more like a larger area, maybe with a separate sort of, maybe with a separate sitting area, or for family if they're going to be staying there for a long period of time, providing some extra space for them.
You can connect everybody.
No, that's the option. No, because it will affect the revenue of the hospital.
Okay.
Those rooms, and again, 27 square meters is a reasonable size. So if you can maintain with the same size,
Okay.
and the 32 to something similar,
I think it's just something. So we've got the right bed numbers then on those floors?
Yes. There's 16, and I think that's
But basically, your concern was about how much space we have for family waiting area if they're staying X amount of time.
Well, it was asking the question whether if the expectation is for them to stay in the room or have a separate area of the main bedroom. That's what we're thinking. Should we be looking at a different layout, maybe more like a suite type arrangement, where you have a separate living area or sitting area, maybe where they, some family members could stay there and then the bedroom is separate.
That's more like a VIP or a royal sort of setup. No, I think it's fine as it is. Is the feedback?
Okay. You still have enough space in the room to allow for sort of seating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're on level 11, which is more postpartum, is it?
Yes, level 10 is there.
Then again, so let's go up. What's the next?
We're going the rest of the
Then moving up after that, above that is the inpatient units. Again, we've got 16 bedrooms. The layout is, very similar with the clinic. So the bedrooms are around the perimeter of the building, with the clinical support in the middle.
So everything's pretty much standard right the way up through the tunnel. So all the services, bathrooms. It's pretty efficient.
So what if I do rooms here from the 20, 27?
Like 20? Over here?
Yeah, 20.
because of
That's
the
isolation.
isolation.
Yeah. So it's really that plus that makes it 27.
Yeah.
So in this room, that is the cap. That's the bed space anyway. So it's the same. So will we just skip right up to the VIP Royal? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean all the other floors in between. I mean it's the same layout. So yeah.
I mean, is there a floor for services like?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's one in the middle.
One in the middle, above the cafe restaurant. There's one that serves the podium, and then just above the VIP suites, there'll be one as well. I think we have a diagram of it. So we've got rehab, long-term care units. Again, they just blocked in as departmental. Long-term care as well, and shell. And so this is the Royal Suite at the top, the VVIP, or the VIP. So
You can see there's the 3 suites on the top Royal suites there, and then we've got 5 VIP suites sort of on the bottom half.
so this is highway, yes?
the highway is up to the top.
What's above the room?
So above that floor is it's the roof. I mean, the idea is that to have some access to roof terraces there, but also potentially, there will be some that will be located on that floor. So we just need to understand how much space there is available for that.
Basically, the powder room is just it's basically a toilet without the shower, right? It's just the sink and the toilet.
Yes, correct. Yeah, I think that's the idea.
It's more of a visitor without a shower because the visitors not have showers.
I mean, and that's a pretty good room there as well. I mean, that's we got the best views. Maybe that one could
previous discussion when we were looking at the SOA, because we combined, previously the Royal Suites and the VIP Suites were on 2 separate floors, so each one had their own floor. So we hadn't discussed the exact numbers, but we said we're gonna look at the layout and see how many we can actually fit on one floor when those two are combined. So I think this is probably the maximum number we can have on this floor.
So we got 5 and 3, 4. Yeah. I mean, those areas were 61. So again, I don't know if you want to reduce it. Around 61. If you want to reduce and try and squeeze another one in, depend maybe the other.
It depends on the layout.
Exactly.
We can look at meeting because we have just on the bottom of the plan there, we have next to the VIP suite, we have a large sort of family waiting area. Now, I mean, we can, if you would rather have another VIP suite, maybe we can take that out completely and turn that into another VIP suite.
Well, I think given the size of those rooms, most of the family are probably going to be in the room most of the time anyway, so we probably could use, I mean, that's going to be pretty good views down towards the sports stadium as well. Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So maybe if we try and make that, or just make that VIP and that VIP as well. I mean, these 3 rooms being Royal Suites.
And sure. Yeah, and one other suggestion, if we can duplicate this to the lower floors and increase the number of the rooms by utilizing the waiting area and having this area at the corner as a waiting area for families.
So you want to take what we have as a family zone and the floor?
Yeah.
Okay. But the only thing is, I mean, that kind of tied in with the concept of having like a day space and a view out at the end of the corridor.
Yeah, well, but most of the patients will have an access to the view.
Well, I think part of it is, I see what you're saying in terms of maximizing that with having more patients. The one thing in the rendering, if you look at it, there is
whenever possible.
I mean, part of it was that the corner of that tower, and you'll see it right now, it has like an open space with it's not going to have as much greenery, I think, as the rendering shows it. But part of it was that the family can have a place where they can relax, because a lot of you're going to have especially for something like the birth of their child, they're going to have extended family that's going to come. So not everybody might fit in the standard room, but at least the rest of the family can stay on this corner of the building that has nice views towards the outside and have natural light and so forth. Rather than if what you're saying is put it in the inside of the tower, where it might just be a bit.
I mean, the other thing that you get is the opportunity just to be able to see at the end of the corridor a view out to orientate yourself as to which end of that ellipse you're at.
So because there's a door closing one side, because access will not be both sides.
No, but it's just visually whenever you're walking around a building, you don't necessarily know if you're pointing that way or pointing that way. So having that view out to be able to see, I'm over the stadium or I'm over the highway allows you to know which stairs to use. It just reduces the amount of people getting lost in the building.
Fine. Let's see. We've seen the total number of rooms later on.
Agree.
Yeah. We'll see if there's a chance of improvement here and there. So I think for the Royal Suites, I think it's the idea of that.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And again, if you compare this to like.
There's 2 doors here.
Yeah.
So visually,
I think it's probably okay on this floor because you have so few people here, so few rooms. But on the other floors, it may be a problem just where you have. It just means that if you're here and you visit somebody in this room, and you walk along here and you see, actually, that's not where I came. I came this way.
civil defense, do they require to have the corridor open?
Sorry, but then because we will do on different fixing a thread or yes.
I said so we could.
There's
know that you need to have an access.
No, it would be managed by the science study. And obviously, if I don't worry about the location of the staircases as well. We have to look at ensuring that.
The design, but what will happen? It will shrink. So this might move here. This
Yes,
might
the
move here.
relocate this. Yeah, everything is just here right now. Let's be like this. Or maybe we have to go to the center.
We also made
There will be some requirement from that safety consultant, so it's going to be staircase and
Even the fire might look yours.
so many things will.
so the solution is based on affiliating on the principles.
Exactly.
The team
That would
should
check
start
Yeah.
working on it from other sides.
To be honest with you, it's actually we can work here and here. That needs to be
We can swell the so that will give
I think that if you confirm the departments and the location of where they stack in the building,
Yeah.
and the number of key rooms that we have, then we can start to look at these things and figure out if it's all stuff to do.
Okay, I think we're pretty much done then, are we? We maybe try and get Chad on board. Chad next on the agenda.
I think Chad's had to go. He's just dropped us a line.
Is Lawrence gone as well then, obviously?
I don't know. Oh, I don't know actually.
Maybe we can go on to Grant on the interior design then a bit. Is Grant on the call?
I am, yeah.
Apologies, Grant. Our agenda is pretty much shot now, so yeah. So, but that was a useful session. We obviously go through a lot of the issues. So, I don't know if you want to share your screen and we can go through the interior design. Maybe catch up with Chad later on if he becomes available. But Chad was going to talk about the externals and the options, which I think you guys have seen anyway. So, it's probably more important to get into the interiors.
we put up the Singapore person.
So this is Chad Porter.
Yep.
Do you want me to stop sharing and you can share yours, Chad? Or sorry, Grant?
We did for the interiors. We don't have any slides to refer to just yet. So we wanted to have more of a general discussion about the direction.
Yeah.
So before we presented anything, we just wanted to sort of talk a little bit about our thoughts and perspective on the building and how we translate the exterior aesthetic into the interior. So so that we're all aligned, the kind of things, the language of the architecture and the description so far is that there's a focus on nature and that it needs to be calming. There's a preference for light tones. The space should promote healing and decrease stress. We wanted to focus on intuitive wayfinding, a sense of a very grand entry, the very upmarket retail in the front, and then we wanted to maximize views out and then create a connection from the inside to the outside, and then we also use the gardens on the podium to do that and the small gardens on sort of alternate floors to do that, to bring green throughout the building and create a sense of connection. So the concept for the building is obviously it's really striking, it's very eye-catching. We wanted to try and use the interior and the lighting and some of the ways that we project through the building to make it a bit of a beacon in the neighborhood. The concept is called the embrace, this idea of mother and child, and it's a comforting and soothing place. So that's another thing that we really wanted to translate into the interior. I know that the purpose of the skin was sort of protect the building from traffic, protect it from the residential and from the hotel, from views, and create a sense of transparency whilst also providing some privacy. So that's that language of privacy versus transparency and the laser cut facade that's all vernacular that we wanted to take into the interior. So just to kind of align us, I wanted to just talk a little bit about how we thought we would translate that. So the building is a very, it's slightly unusual shape. It's an ellipse, and they're not always the easiest buildings to plan. But because it's quite a large floor plate, the floor plate's actually quite efficient, and you end up with fairly orthogonal shaped rooms in the building, but they're still not perfectly rectilinear, all of the rooms. So our feeling is that the organic shell we didn't really want to come with a traditional sort of approach to the building. We wanted a much more sort of contemporary and modern aesthetic in the building, and we thought the organic shell should be, we should make a feature of that. The building really aesthetically is all about contrasts, the idea of steel and glass against the curves, grand spaces versus intimate spaces, this idea of transparency and spaciousness and views versus the concept of comfort and it being embraced. And we thought we would carry this on in the interior aesthetic with the idea of matching the concepts of cleanliness and professionalism and a clinical nature versus green and natural and warm materials. Again, marrying this idea of transparency and privacy. The idea of fabrics versus solid things and the transparent skin versus solid structures, patterns against plain, this building glass and concrete against greens and woods, oaks, natural materials, straight lines against curves. We just see so many contrasts and ways that the building has a play on these different elements, paradoxes that we really want to try and bring that into the interior. We want to connect the interior to the exterior as much as possible. And in the interior planning, sort of our approach, what we're thinking is that the inside of a curve is very comforting, and being on the outside of curve is sort of energizing and dynamic. So we wanted to use the curves in the interior architecture and enhance them rather than disguise them with sort of with square walls or straight walls.
Grant, give us a second. Grant, can you advise which kind of material and is it, maintainable? How it will be, it's easy to maintain or clean. You know that, what they call it? Always forget. The structure. Yeah.
This
yes. Yes.
Well, Grant right now is just talking about the interiors. Chad, who hopefully will join us, or if not later, he will talk about the exterior. But Grant's just talking about more of what should be the interior.
Yeah.
I feel.
I just wanted to give you an idea of our approach. We really want we want to hear from you what your vision for the interior is, but our thinking at the moment is that it's very important that the exterior and the interior feel like one, that they're not disjointed, that the interior is very calming and relaxing and a place of serenity, but also privacy, that we maximize transparency and natural light and views out, and that it feels very contemporary, not a traditional space, and not overly formal. We want it to feel very modern, very contemporary, very light. So if you could sort of share with us your views and your thoughts about your vision for the interior and how it also relates to your other healthcare projects, as far as sort of a brand vision, that would be really helpful for us in targeting our first presentation.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask, so you obviously have 3 projects that you're running in parallel. Are the names of each of these facilities going to have the same brand in terms of...
I'm talking about consistency.
Is it consistency? When you walk into a Hilton, you always know there's a certain feel to it, whether it's a Marriott or Four Seasons, especially as you move up the brand. So is there a consistency in the look and feel that you?
As far as of the as a hospital project, this question was highlighted in the RFI. So at that moment, I have to give you clear answer what was linked first to the area around the location of the project, the operator who will operate, and also your thoughts, because we are not expecting that the same thought will be given for each of the products. So all this will be affect our decision.
Well, that's good, because that's the kind of direction we needed. We thought it's going to be a total brand or individual. So that's a certificate then.
9 pieces here and then T-con different location.
Correct.
Charge different. It will be difficult to, so it depends on the area and your advice, operator, what kind of operator will be, the level of let's say, the insurance or the revenue, each area is different.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have and that makes sense. You have different targets, segments that you're going after in each of them, whether the type of customer that you're looking at. But let me ask you this: I realize that you're affiliating yourself with a certain operator potentially for each of these different facilities. Will the building be branded as MOBH in affiliation with X, or MOBH Healthcare in affiliation with X operator, or will it be branded as the international operator, or how will it be branded? Okay.
But we are doing initial discussion with an operator in the Karama project, which is out of the scope. But what the operator is looking for, look and feel of his own facility.
Okay, because like for
interior reflects onto their own requirements, and that's a different approach, because we are branding that facility to their plan. So MOBH will be small, but XYZ will be big.
Yeah, I mean,
no, go ahead.
Well, it's being able to get that input as early as possible in the process is obviously beneficial. I mean, we can give some impressions and some images of to allow you to be able to sell the project to the operator and get them on board. But knowing who the operator is and having those standards and codes and general branding, so guidelines is essential.
Yeah, that's fine. So let's presume that you are presenting for us something. In case the operator did not click with him, we will go with our own.
Yes.
So we are expecting 3 different what do you call it?
Options.
Sure. Yeah.
Based on the
locations and
based on the cost expectation of these projects.
Sure.
So Sharjah should not be very luxury one.
Exactly.
Here is more luxury.
Yes. And then maybe MPC is somewhere. Yeah. Okay.
So does that make sense, Grant?
Yeah.
It's not across all 3. It's let's look at each individually and see what makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, we have some pretty strong thoughts about how we could translate some of the architectural statements and the look and feel and the materiality and the concept into the interior. So what we'll do is we'll develop that into a presentation with options for you to see, and then hopefully the operator is in alignment and can use a lot of our thinking and design.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the idea was to maybe have another follow-up session just on interior design with you guys, perhaps next week. Does that work, Grant? If you want to suggest a time.
Well, I'll do that. Yes, I'll look at diaries and make a suggestion.
It's good because the interior design will take longer than even the concept, because it's temporal.
Yeah.
It can be developed.
And obviously the plans have been refined over the last few days, so Grant hasn't had much of a chance just to refine his ideas, but over the next week.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I don't suppose Chad has joined the call. Maybe we just go on to IBA and Heather on the engineering. Thanks very much, Grant. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to keep you late.
I better be more realistic with the agenda the next time.
We say 15 minutes with clinical.
I know.
We're hoping.
What was I thinking?
No, that's all fine. It's all good.
Oh yeah, so that was engineering. So yeah, I mean, how do you want to start?
We will give some briefs for the system which is proposed for us.
Do you want me to just open up the plans again, or the sections, or do you want to talk over your section?
We will go through your goals. It's very fun.
Okay.
This is structural, no. This is
Structure.
Not so many pictures here. Actually, let me keep them going here.
Yeah. I mean, for the sake of this report, we have, tried to present, first of all, the design criteria. And in addition to the design criteria, just to go, in general, about, the codes and standards, that would apply on this, type of projects. And in addition to the design criteria, we have, section talking about the proposed system for the building. We will start from, from the substructure will be, the foundation will be wiring, and of course will be, the joint will be decided based on, the numbers of basement.
As far as the soil investigation are almost completed, so
yeah,
you use this information.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And for the slabs, it will be post tension, but we have just received a good point from them regarding the post tension. How flexible will be for us? If later on we
why you are not post tension?
Because these days, everybody, using this for,
more spans and
yes, spans, no beams, no limitations of, it's good for the interior, good for, in the facade,
But there is any future,
and that's what, and this is the one thing that we had a discussion last week on. We said, okay, well, post tension, of course, there's some benefits.
Yeah, post tension.
You will not have the flexibility.
So
I will have this, discuss with our head of structure department to see what alternative we can go with,
like a flat slab or
cost benefit,
exactly.
cost efficient, as good as time, all this.
Yeah, okay, so this is no problem. Can we move to the next section?
Sure.
This is all design criteria.
Which standard you will follow? Same like British and
all that will be so let us go to the GIS.
Still structure. So the TIS is.
yeah. We'll come back to it again.
So screen whenever you see your.
There.
This is the GIS. Most of the, traffic-related issues, for this project, it will be, communicated through, the scope of work of the TIS. For example, anything within the building, parking, circulation, it will be checked and verified by the traffic, as a part of the TIS requirement. Entry, exit, and of course, in addition to any mitigation measures from the junctions around, our development, and also we will be checking, I said entry or exit, and in terms of procedure, we will go, as usual with the introduction, the methodology report, modeling, and the ultimate outcome of the GIS, it will be, I mean, the what you call the approval for all traffic related, I mean, solutions. I mean, for, I mean, the, what you call the networks surrounding the development, in addition to the, I mean, what we call regional affecting junctions. At the end, I mean, this usually takes, you know, I mean, 60, or let's say 8 to, I mean, 10 months to, I mean, to get it done. There is a chance that, you know, what you call traffic survey might be required.
8 months for study or 8 weeks? Weeks.
That's 8 months.
Yes. You really don't. We thought it was days.
After the concept finalization.
Yes, as you know, it will, I mean, ideally, I mean, to have it, you know, initiated, you know, upon the approval, or at least, you know, when we have closing concept.
And we actually, several weeks ago with Abdullah, we met with the TIS consultant to explain the project. Now, one of the things the reason why it hasn't progressed is that we still needed to do the layouts, because at the end of the day, he said, well, you need to show me the site plan with all your entrances and exits. Now that we have some feedback from you on this, then we can revise that site and then get it to them and start moving. I think the GFA, for the most part, with the exceptions of maybe just that adjustment to what we were talking about, to the setbacks and so forth. But for the most part, the GFA is there, so I think we have a lot of the information to be able to start.
We can consider, for example, like the allowed GFA plus 10%.
So, I think we're in good shape.
I did check with them if, I mean, what will happen if, I mean, we are done with the concept, but we are still, you know, we don't have the new affection plan. They said, I mean, they checked and they said there is no problem, you know, RTA.
I think
they want
will
to
not give new affection. They will update the system. Give no NRC to convert, but to issue a new affection plan as a healthcare.
Anyway, they said, you know, we are okay to see anything that in progress, you know, any application that will be good for the different zone.
What's that? Oh, yes. Okay. Are we done?
Yeah.
So, where do you want me to go now?
We can, for the vertical transportation, we were just waiting, you know, the concept to be more, I mean, developed and elaborated. But most likely by tomorrow, I mean, we will get a report about the vertical transportation in terms of number of lifts and other requirements by tomorrow. And same thing from the fire. You know, I mean, our fire consultant has, you know, prepared some high-level, I mean, fire strategy for the development. But again, due to, I mean, what you call the level of the cost that we have for now, they have just given, you know, the general requirement for hospitals. Once we have again the concept, you know, more developed and frozen, I mean, this strategy will be more, I mean, project specific.
I mean, in terms of the frozen legs, I mean, we're generally pretty happy with what's there, apart from the changes on ground floor. So I think the idea is that let's just issue this.
Just if you can go back, okay, I'm done. Regarding the ground floor, going back to the comments raised by Engineer Bashar about, you know, the locating of utilities on within the setback. I just want to make this clear for your design.
I didn't say that.
फिर
मीटिंग तो चल रही है वैसे अभी मीटिंग चल रही है वैसे 2 मिनट बचे अभी मीटिंग में उसका सिस्टम डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया।
शाम का
हाँ 2 मिनट तो बचे अभी मीटिंग के।
क्या उसको लगा रहे हैं यार, और कितने नोट्स बनाए हैं बंदा।